The Grand Council Hall stood at the center of the galaxy's oldest station, a place older than empires and older than memory itself. The hall was not built for beauty, it was built for power. The ceilings arched so high that even the winged species could not touch them when they flew. Pillars of black stone glowed faintly with streams of alien energy, and banners of 100 civilizations hung above like silent witnesses. Today the hall was louder than usual. Representatives from every starfaring race filled the chamber, their voices sharp, fearful, and urgent. The news had spread across the galaxy like a storm. The humans had arrived. For many here, human was only a word from half-broken records, or a whisper from explorers who had traveled near their system and never returned. Some believed they were only a legend, an invention of old war stories. But today, the council had summoned one of them. Today, the truth would stand in the hall. The atmosphere trembled with tension. A tall insectoid delegate tapped its claws nervously on the marble floor. Its compound eyes clicked back and forth, searching for reassurance but finding none. A scaled reptilian senator hissed softly, its tail twitching like a blade. Even the machine-born envoy, who had no nerves and no fear, allowed its metallic fingers to tighten into fists. All of them were waiting for the same thing, the arrival of a human. Whispers rippled through the chamber. "Why did the council call them here?" one asked in a language of soft chimes. "They are predators, true predators," another answered in a low growl. "They are dangerous," hissed a voice from the shadows. "They are necessary," came a different reply, firm but uneasy. No one agreed. No one trusted. But every single being in the hall felt the same truth gnawing at the back of their minds. Humans were not like the rest of them. The council speaker, an elder whose species looked like flowing water wrapped in a shimmering shell, floated forward to the center of the hall. Its voice echoed with 1,000 harmonics. "Order," it called, though its tone betrayed unease. "The session begins." The voices quieted, though the tension did not fade. "This is a moment of historic weight," the speaker continued. "For the first time, the species known as humanity joins us within these walls. Many of you have called them dangerous. Many of you have called them necessary. Today, we will learn the truth. Today, we will hear from them directly." A heavy silence followed. The great doors at the end of the hall creaked open. Every eye turned. Every whisper died. Every heartbeat seemed to pause. The human entered. He was not armored, not surrounded by soldiers, not carrying weapons. He wore only a simple dark suit, the kind diplomats of Earth considered formal. His footsteps echoed against the stone, calm and steady, as though he walked into a meeting of friends rather than a chamber of fearful enemies. The human was taller than most species, though not the tallest in the hall. His skin was pale compared to some records, his eyes sharp and searching, and his mouth curved in what might have been a polite smile, or a predator's grin. No one could decide. But it was not his height or his face that made the aliens lean back in fear. It was something deeper, something impossible to measure. His presence. He walked as though the hall belonged to him, as though nothing here could harm him. The insectoid delegate clicked its mandibles nervously. The reptilian senator curled its claws against the table. The machine-born envoy tilted its head, analyzing, scanning, yet failing to explain why the human's heartbeat carried such weight in the air. The human stopped at the center of the hall. He looked around slowly, letting his gaze sweep across every representative. Not with fear. Not with arrogance. With something worse, calm. He bowed his head slightly toward the speaker. "Thank you for inviting me," he said in clear, simple words. His voice carried easily, not loud, but strong. It had the weight of someone who had spoken in battlefields and courtrooms alike. No one replied at first. Many were too busy staring, as if waiting for him to reveal teeth, or weapons, or some hidden trick. Finally, the speaker spoke. "You are human?" it asked. "Yes," the man said simply. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Some voices were afraid. Others were angry. A few were curious. The speaker hesitated, then continued. Your species is new to this council. Few records exist. What we know is conflicting. That doesn't surprise me, the human replied. Stories rarely agree. His words were plain, almost casual, but the room felt heavier with each one. The speaker seemed to struggle with the next sentence. The council has one question that must be answered. We will not speak of trade, or war, or peace until this question is answered. The human tilted his head slightly. His eyes glimmered. What question? The speaker hesitated again, as though afraid to ask. Finally, in a voice that trembled slightly, it said, Tell us, human, what do your kind eat? The hall froze. The insectoid's wings twitched. The reptilian's tail struck the floor. Even the machine-born envoy paused its whirring processors. Every species present knew the weight of that question. Food was not just food. Food defined life. Food defined morality. Civilizations were built upon what they consumed. Plant-eaters saw themselves as peaceful, gentle, enlightened. Energy feeders saw themselves as pure, untouched by blood. Mineral feeders called themselves patient and eternal. But predators? Real predators? Few civilized species had ever been born that way. Those that had were feared, hunted, exiled, extinct. And yet here was humanity, alive and growing. The human did not answer at once. He let the silence hang. He let the tension grow. He looked around the hall, meeting eyes, letting them see their own fear reflected back at them. He smiled faintly, though no one could tell if it was kindness or cruelty. His lips parted, but no words came yet. Only silence. And in that silence, the council realized something they had not expected. They realized they were afraid, not of what he would say, but of how easily he could say nothing. The human stood at the center of the Grand Council Hall, silent. The question had been asked, and the weight of it hung over every corner of the chamber like a storm cloud that refused to break. Tell us, human, what do your kind eat? It was a simple question. Yet in this hall, it was a question that could shape the destiny of entire civilizations. The human did not answer immediately. He stood still, calm, his hands folded loosely behind his back. His eyes, sharp and calculating, traveled slowly across the crowd. One by one, he met the gaze of each delegate, alien leaders, generals, scientists, priests, all of them powerful in their own empires, and yet all of them waiting, almost holding their breath, for his reply. The silence stretched. At first, it was only a few heartbeats. Then it became a full minute. Then 2. The insectoid delegate shifted uneasily, its wings fluttering like restless paper. The reptilian senator growled low in its throat, though it did not speak. The aquatic envoy, contained in its hovering tank, let out a stream of bubbles that echoed through the chamber. Even the mechanical envoy, built from alloys and logic, tilted its head as if impatient. Still, the human did not speak. He only watched. The silence began to grow heavier than any answer could have been. In their minds, the delegates began to imagine. They imagined horrors. They imagined teeth, blood, bone, and screams. They imagined predators stalking prey in the night, shadows moving through forests, hunters with eyes that glowed in the dark. They imagined that the human silence was a confession. Whispers began to stir again in the chamber. Do they eat flesh? Hissed a voice from the back. They must, answered another. Perhaps they eat minds, muttered a mechanical envoy, its voice metallic but uneasy. No, came a soft voice, trembling. I have heard. They eat their own. The whispers grew. They twisted into theories, into rumors, into nightmares. Each delegate added another fear, another speculation. The hall became a storm of imagination, and still, the human said nothing. The speaker raised a hand for silence, but even it could not hide the unease. Its shimmering form wavered as though disturbed by unseen currents. Human, it said carefully, perhaps you did not hear. We asked a question. We await your answer. The human's eyes turned toward the speaker at last. He smiled faintly. I heard, he said, his voice calm. And the speaker pressed. The human's smile grew only a little, enough to be unsettling. But again, he said nothing. Gasps echoed through the chamber. A predator that refused to answer was worse than one who confessed. The silence was beginning to feel like a weapon. The reptilian senator slammed its clawed hand against the table, the sound sharp and echoing. Speak, creature, it demanded. Do not toy with us. What sustains you? What fills your kind's belly? The human looked at him. No fear, no anger, only calm. What fills yours? He asked softly. The reptilian's jaws parted, but no words came. It had expected confession, not deflection. The human's gaze moved on. He was not angry, not mocking, only patient, as if he had all the time in the galaxy. The insectoid delegate clicked its mandibles nervously. This is not a game. We must know. We cannot trust what we do not understand. The human gave no reply. Another silence fell, longer and sharper than before. It pressed against the minds of every creature present, suffocating, heavy. Some of the younger envoys began to fidget, shifting in their seats. Some older ones leaned back, as if distance could protect them from the weight of the man's presence. A few scribes in the shadows tried to record the moment, but their hands trembled too much to write clearly. The human silence was beginning to shape itself into an answer of its own. Because what kind of being refused to answer? Only one that knew its truth was more terrible than the question. The aquatic envoy finally spoke, its voice bubbling through translators. Why do you delay? Are you ashamed? Or proud? The human's head tilted slightly. Would it matter which? The aquatic envoy recoiled as if struck. Again, murmurs rose. This time they carried fear and anger, and something else, curiosity. The speaker tried once more. You must understand, human, it said, its voice almost pleading. Among us, what we eat is not just survival. It is philosophy. It is morality. It is culture. If your kind consumes, if your kind preys upon life, then you are not like us. The human's eyes narrowed slightly, though his calm never faded. Not like you, he repeated, almost as if testing the words. Yes, the speaker confirmed. Not like us. And difference is dangerous. The human chuckled softly. It was not cruel, but it carried an edge that made several delegates shiver. Dangerous, he repeated again. He let the word linger. Silence again. The chamber was becoming restless. The silence had stretched so long it felt endless. It had turned from a pause into a presence, a living thing that wrapped around them all. One of the smaller delegates, a rodent-like creature from a lesser-known system, finally squeaked out a trembling question. Do you hunt? The human's eyes moved toward it. He said nothing, but he smiled. The little delegate nearly fainted. By now, the hall was filled with more than fear. It was filled with anticipation. Every being knew that when the human finally spoke, the words would break the air like a blade. The reptilian senator leaned forward, scales glistening. Answer us, human, it growled again, or we will assume the worst. The human raised his eyebrows. And what is the worst? The reptilian faltered. Its jaw clenched, but it had no reply. The human began to walk slowly in a circle, his steps steady, his eyes sweeping across the chamber once more. Every movement seemed deliberate, controlled, a predator's pace that made prey shiver without needing to roar. He stopped again at the center. Why are you so afraid of the answer? He asked, his voice calm, almost gentle. No one replied. Because they all knew the truth. They were not afraid of the question. They were afraid of the human who held the answer. The silence stretched again. Longer. Heavier. The delegates began to feel as though the walls themselves were leaning closer, as though the hall had become smaller, tighter, filled only with his presence. Some glanced toward the doors, as if escape was possible. Others stared only at him, unable to look away. And through it all, the human stood calm, patient, silent. The silence became unbearable. And then, at last, he spoke. His words were slow, deliberate, and heavy. "We eat," he said softly, "what you fear most." The hall erupted in gasps, cries, shouts. Some delegates rose to their feet. Some shouted for order. Some whispered in panic. The speaker struck the floor with its staff, calling for calm, but the chamber was chaos. The humans stood silent again, letting their own fears build upon his words. He had said almost nothing. But in that almost, he had given them everything. Because now, every alien in the hall believed that their worst fear was true. The insectoid delegate trembled violently. The reptilian senator bared its teeth in anger. The aquatic envoy pressed against the glass of its tank as if trying to retreat. The machine envoy calculated probabilities, its processors overheating with the flood of speculation. The human only watched. His calm was more terrifying than any confession. The silence returned once more, heavier than before, but now it carried a new weight. Not only fear, but certainty. Because whether he had spoken truth, or played with words, or simply fed their imagination, the result was the same. The council was afraid. And the human had not even truly answered. The chamber still trembled from the human's last words. "We eat what you fear most." The sentence was simple, but it had torn through the council like fire through dry wood. The hall had erupted into whispers, shouts, and panicked cries. Delegates from across the galaxy leaned toward one another, demanding explanations, demanding certainty. No two of them imagined the same thing, and yet all of them felt the same fear. The human stood at the center, silent once again. He had spoken, and then he had allowed their own minds to do the rest. He watched them argue, panic, and imagine horrors far worse than the truth. The speaker struck its staff against the floor again, a low harmonic echoing across the chamber. "Order!" it called. "The human has spoken, but the answer remains unclear. We will have clarity. We must have clarity." Slowly, the noise subsided. The delegates sat once more, though their bodies betrayed their unease. The insectoid twitched and clicked, the reptilian senator's tail lashed against the floor, and the aquatic envoy's tank shook with restless water. The mechanical envoy's processors hummed audibly, recording, analyzing, failing to predict. The speaker turned toward the human. Its voice wavered slightly. "Explain," it said. "What do you mean? What do humans eat?" The human took a breath, calm and measured, as though he had been waiting for this moment. He lifted his eyes, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of something old, something practiced, something that had been said many times before. "We eat life," he said. The words struck like thunder. Gasps filled the chamber. Some delegates shouted in disbelief. Others recoiled, as though struck by a physical blow. Even the mechanical envoy tilted back, its logic cores momentarily silent. The human did not stop. "We eat creatures with flesh and blood. Animals that breathe and move. Beasts that fight back when hunted. We eat them." The insectoid delegate's wings buzzed in horror. "Unthinkable," it clicked. "Barbaric. Primitive." The reptilian senator leaned forward, eyes narrow, teeth bared. "You admit it freely. You eat the living." The human nodded calmly. "Yes. We do. We always have." The hall shook with noise again. Some voices cried out for his species to be condemned. Some demanded they be cast out of the council before talks had even begun. Others simply sat in stunned silence, unable to comprehend such a truth. The speaker raised its staff again, trembling. "Silence. The human will continue." The noise fell slowly. The human's voice remained steady, almost gentle, but the calmness only made it worse. "We eat animals. Creatures smaller than us, creatures larger than us. We hunt them. We raise them. We kill them. and we eat their flesh. A murmur of disgust swept the chamber. Some covered their faces. Some glared at him with open hatred. But the human's eyes were unwavering. We do not eat only plants, like many of you. We do not feed only on minerals or energy. We eat meat, living things. And sometimes, his eyes grew colder, sharper. Sometimes, we eat each other. The chamber exploded in outrage. Cries of horror shook the hall. The insectoid slammed its claws against the table, screeching. The aquatic envoy let out a burst of bubbles so violent the tank nearly cracked. Even the reptilian senator, who had lived through wars, recoiled for a heartbeat before growling in rage. "You cannibals!" it spat. "You devour your own kind." The human's voice never rose, never wavered. "Not often. Not always. But it has happened. In war. In famine. In desperation. When survival leaves no choice." His words were ice. They did not excuse. They did not plead. They only told the truth. The silence that followed was not the same as before. This silence was heavier, darker. Now the council was not only afraid of what the humans might eat. They were afraid of what they might be. The speaker trembled. "Monsters," it whispered, almost without meaning to. The word echoed through the chamber. Others repeated it under their breath. Monsters. Predators. Cannibals. Death world spawn. The human stood alone at the center of the storm of hatred, his expression unreadable. He did not deny. He did not defend. He only waited. Finally, he spoke again. "You call us monsters. Perhaps we are. But we are alive. We are here." The words silenced the chamber once more. His voice had weight, like the pull of a world's gravity. The insectoid clicked angrily. "Alive? Yes. But what is the cost? How many of your own kind have you slaughtered for food? How many beasts have you destroyed?" The human's gaze turned toward it. "As many as we needed. No more. No less." The reptilian senator snarled. "And you are proud of this?" The human's calm did not break. "We are not proud. We are not ashamed. It is simply what we are." The speaker seemed to tremble within its shimmering shell. "Why tell us this? Why reveal such horror so openly?" The human's eyes swept the hall once more. "Because you asked. And because lies would not serve either of us." The delegates shifted uneasily. Some still glared with hatred. Some stared in fear. And a few, a very few, looked at the human with something else, respect. The machine envoy spoke for the first time since the confession. Its voice was metallic, unfeeling, yet edged with fascination. "You consume living matter. You consume even your own species when necessary. This is inefficient. This is brutal. Yet your species has not gone extinct. It has thrived. Why?" The human's lips curved slightly. "Because we are survivors." The words were soft, but they struck harder than any shout. "We eat flesh because our world demanded it. We hunted because to refuse was to die. We consumed what was before us, or we vanished. We did not choose this path. The path chose us. And we followed it." The aquatic envoy whispered through its translator. "You thrive on blood. You build on death. How can such a species exist without tearing itself apart?" The human's eyes darkened, his voice lowering. "Who says we haven't?" A chill swept through the hall. The meaning was clear. Humanity had torn itself apart. Wars. Famines. Cannibalism. Yet somehow they had survived. That survival, more than their hunger, was what terrified the council most. The reptilian senator slammed its tail against the ground. "You are dangerous. Too dangerous to join this council." Others murmured in agreement. The insectoid clicked wildly, calling for exile. The aquatic envoy demanded quarantine. The machine envoy simply processed, whirring, its logic system strained. The speaker raised its staff again. Enough. We have heard the human's words. The truth is clear. But even as it spoke, the human leaned forward slightly, his calm breaking for the first time. You have not heard the truth, he said, his voice sharp now. You have heard only the beginning. The chamber froze. The human's eyes burned, not with anger, but with certainty. You ask what we eat. You think the answer is flesh, blood, bone. But that is only the surface. That is not the truth you fear. The delegates leaned in, some against their will, drawn by something they could not name. The human's voice grew lower, darker. The truth is this: we do not just eat meat. We eat challenges. We eat struggle. We eat everything that stands in our way. The hall was silent again. Not because they chose silence, but because the words had stolen their voices. When the cold tries to kill us, we eat it. When the heat burns us, we eat it. When beasts rise against us, we eat them. When hunger claws at our bellies, we eat that too. And when war comes, when famine comes, when death itself comes. He paused. His eyes swept them once more. We eat those as well. The chamber trembled. No one moved. No one spoke. No one breathed. The human's calm returned, but now it carried something else. A weight, a presence, the shadow of a truth too large for the hall to contain. We are not monsters, he said quietly. We are survivors. And that is what you truly fear. The silence that followed was absolute. For the first time in the history of the Grand Council, the delegates of 100 civilizations sat not in argument, not in debate, not in pride, but in fear. And at the center of it all, the human stood alone. Silent, calm, unshaken. The revelation was complete. The chamber was silent. Absolute silence. The words of the human had fallen upon the council like a meteor crashing through fragile stone. Every delegate, alien, machine, aquatic, insectoid, reptilian, sat frozen, their minds spinning, struggling to comprehend what they had just heard. We eat challenges. We eat struggle. We eat everything that stands in our way, the human had said. The silence hung, heavy as molten metal. Some delegates covered their faces. Others whispered to one another in fear, disbelief, or awe. But the human remained calm, his presence unshakable, his gaze steady. Finally, the speaker raised its staff once more, though its shimmering form flickered like light through water. Human, it said slowly, its voice wary. You have told us what you eat. You have revealed horrors that are beyond our understanding. But why? Why do you do this? Why does your species survive through blood and violence, when others rise peacefully on plants, energy, or minerals? The human's eyes swept the chamber. Each alien representative felt as though he was looking directly into their soul, seeing not just their fear but their doubts, their arrogance, their judgment. He did not answer immediately. He allowed the silence to grow. He allowed the fear to settle deeper. Then, he began. Our world, our home, Earth, is harsh, brutal, unforgiving. The insectoid delegate clicked its mandibles in disbelief. Harsh? And you survived. The human nodded. Yes, we survived. But not by being gentle. Not by waiting for mercy. Not by following rules written by others. We survived because we adapted. Because we consumed, because we fought, because we endured. We did what was necessary to survive. A ripple of unease passed through the council. Survival? That sounded simple. But the calm in his voice suggested something deeper, something terrifying. The reptilian senator leaned forward. And what of morality? Ethics? Civilization? It demanded. Do these not matter? The human smiled faintly, though there was no humor in it. Morality is relative. Ethics are rules we invent to guide behavior. Civilization is fragile. On Earth, if we did not eat what was available, If we did not hunt, if we did not fight, we would not exist. We would have vanished long ago. And those who vanished, we do not remember. The speaker stirred uneasily. So you justify killing as a means of survival? The human's gaze did not waver. I do not justify. I explain. There is a difference. One is morality. One is truth. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink into the chamber. Every delegate felt it pressing against their chest. The words were not threats. They were facts. Simple, undeniable facts. Our world demanded that we eat. It demanded that we kill. It demanded that we endure pain, hunger, cold, heat, disease, death. And we did. The insectoid clicked loudly. So you admit it. You consumed, you destroyed, you killed your own kind if necessary. You were forged by hardship. Yes, the human said softly. Forged, tested, shaped. We are not born as we appear. We are made by struggle, by hardship, by hunger, by survival. Every human carries this history in their blood, in their bones, in their mind. It is who we are. The reptilian senator's tail lashed the floor violently. And you believe this gives you the right to enter the council? The human's voice remained calm. Not the right. The ability. Survival is not about rights. Survival is about capability. And we are capable. A murmur ran through the chamber. Many delegates exchanged nervous glances. Some leaned forward, their curiosity overpowering fear for a moment. Others shook their heads in disbelief. But all of them understood that this was not arrogance. It was truth. The human continued. When we eat animals, we honor the cycle of life. When we consume challenges, we honor our existence. When we endure hardship, we respect survival. We are not cruel for cruelty's sake. We are necessary for survival's sake. The aquatic envoy bubbled nervously. But what of compassion? Empathy? Cooperation? The human's eyes softened slightly. We have compassion. We have empathy. We cooperate. But only with those who can endure. Only with those who can meet the challenge. Only with those who can survive alongside us. Weakness is not punished by us. Weakness is punished by life itself. A deep silence followed. The hall was still, but the tension was different now. Fear remained, yes, but curiosity and even understanding began to mix with it. The speaker moved its staff, the energy in the room flickering as though the words themselves caused the hall to tremble. You speak as if your species is beyond understanding. That your survival justifies acts that others cannot comprehend. The human tilted his head. Yes, we are beyond simple understanding. Because our world is beyond simple survival. Life on Earth is chaos. Endless chaos. If we could not endure, we would have died. If we could not consume, we would have vanished. That is why we eat as we do. That is why we survive as we do. That is why you fear us. The insectoid delegate clicked angrily. You speak of fear, yet you have not told us the full truth. You admit to eating flesh. You admit to survival through blood. But there is something more. We feel it. The council feels it. There is something deeper that frightens us. The human's gaze sharpened. His calm returned, but now it carried a weight that made even the bravest delegates lean forward, unable to resist the pull. The deeper truth, he said slowly, is this: we do not just eat to live. We eat to overcome. We eat to challenge. We consume what stands in our way, and we do not stop. We thrive on struggle. We feed on fear, on adversity, on obstacles. Life itself is food to us. And we digest it, shaping it, conquering it, becoming stronger. The reptilian senator's eyes narrowed to slits. You do not merely survive. You dominate. You feed on existence itself. The human nodded once. Yes, we do. And that is why we thrive. That is why we endure. That is why we are here before you now, standing where others might have fallen. We are survivors, forged by life's harshest tests, and we carry that strength within us. A murmur spread across the hall. Delegates shifted, whispering among themselves. Some were horrified, some impressed, and some, quietly, were beginning to understand. Humanity's power did not come from weapons, or numbers, or technology alone. It came from something more fundamental: the ability to endure, to adapt, to consume life and struggle alike. The aquatic envoy spoke again, its voice trembling. And yet, can such a species be trusted? If you consume everything in your path, how can peace exist with you? The human's voice softened but did not weaken. Peace is not the absence of struggle. Peace is the understanding that strength is required. We do not seek war, but we do not shy from it. We do not destroy lightly, but we do not hesitate when survival demands action. We respect life, but we respect survival even more. That is our way. That is our truth. The hall fell silent once more. Even the reptilian senator seemed to pause, its scales shimmering with the reflection of the council's lights. Every delegate understood now that these humans were unlike any other species they had encountered. The human continued, calm and deliberate. Many of you see only what is easy to understand. You see plants, minerals, energy. You see worlds where life flows gently, with rules and limits. But Earth is different. Life there is constant struggle. Chaos is law. And we learned to thrive in it, not despite it, but because of it. The insectoid clicked again, its wings vibrating in thought. You claim to survive by adapting. But what of morality? What of limits? The human's gaze did not falter. Limits are illusions. Morality is optional. Life is not bound by rules, only by consequence. If you survive, you are right. If you perish, you were wrong. That is the law of the universe, the law of Earth, and the law we follow. We do not break rules. We follow the ultimate rule: survival. A tremor of understanding passed through the hall. Even the speaker's staff vibrated faintly, as though reacting to the weight of the words. The council, which had once feared a single human for their diet alone, now understood something far more profound. Humanity's survival was not just about what they ate. It was about how they faced the universe. The human leaned slightly forward, his voice low but powerful. You fear us because we are not like you. You fear us because we endure what others cannot. You fear us because life itself forged us into beings who thrive on struggle. You fear us because we are human. Silence fell again. But this time, it was not empty. It was filled with comprehension, awe, and a quiet, uneasy respect. The speaker finally spoke, its voice trembling. And yet, despite this, you have come here willingly. You have entered the council without attack, without demand. Why? The human's eyes glimmered. Because survival is not just about defending oneself. Survival is about understanding. And to survive, one must know their place, their challenge, and their allies. I came here to speak truth. Not to threaten but to show you who we are. So that you may know what it means to face humanity. The council fell silent once more. They had heard the justification. They had seen the calm certainty, the reasoning behind a species so feared. And while fear remained, something else had begun to grow. A tentative understanding that these humans, terrible as they were, had a reason, a logic, and a purpose beyond mere hunger. The human straightened, standing tall, calm, and unshaken. We are survivors. And that is why we endure. And that is why you will remember us. The council sat, silent. Some still whispered fearfully to one another. Some still recoiled at the truth. And a few, very few, began to realize the strength, the resilience, and the sheer indomitable will of the human species. The justification was complete. The council had heard it. And yet, deep down, every delegate knew that this explanation, this calm reasoning, was only the beginning. The full measure of humanity had yet to be revealed. And the chamber, heavy with fear, awe, and curiosity, awaited the next words. The chamber of the Galactic Council was quiet. Not the quiet of peace or contemplation, but the heavy quiet of fear. The silence weighed on every delegate like a physical presence. The words of the human still resonated in their minds. "We are survivors," he had said. "We endure. We thrive. We consume life, struggle, and challenge itself." The council had heard the justification. They had understood, in part, why humans did what they did. But understanding was not comfort. Understanding was not reassurance. It was realization. And realization brought fear. The speaker's shimmering form floated forward. Its voice wavered. "Human, you have explained. You have justified. And yet, there remains a question. If you consume struggle, life, and challenge, then what does that truly mean? What is it that humans truly eat?" The human's eyes darkened, calm and piercing. He looked at the speaker, then around the hall, and finally directly at every delegate present. Every eye turned toward him, drawn against their will, unable to look away. "The answer," he said, voice low but carrying across the chamber, "is everything." A murmur ran through the hall. Every species shifted, some leaning forward in disbelief, some leaning back in fear. The insectoid clicked nervously. The reptilian senator's tail struck the floor. The aquatic envoy's water rippled violently. Even the mechanical envoy processed, whirring, overwhelmed. "Everything," the speaker repeated, almost whispering. "Everything." The human nodded once. "Yes, everything. Life, death, struggle, challenge, fear itself. We consume all that stands against us. And we do not merely survive. We thrive." The room felt heavier. Every delegate understood that the human's words were more than metaphor, more than speech. These were statements of fact. "Fear!" A voice squeaked from the back, a small rodent-like delegate. You eat fear?" The human's lips curved in a faint smile. "Yes, we do. Fear is the flavor of weakness. Struggle is the seasoning. The universe tests us endlessly, and we consume those tests, one by one, growing stronger each time." The insectoid delegate leaned forward, clicking its mandibles. "But how can one species survive consuming not only flesh but everything else? You do not merely hunt animals. You do not merely adapt. You thrive on all that exists." The human's eyes were steady. "Yes. That is what makes humans terrifying. That is why the council fears us." A shiver ran through the chamber. Even the speaker faltered. "Terrifying? You mean dangerous beyond comprehension?" The human nodded. "More than dangerous. We are inevitable. Every challenge you face, every obstacle, every threat, we will consume it, master it, and grow stronger from it. We do not stop. We do not falter. We endure, adapt, and dominate what stands before us." The council members glanced at one another, uneasy. A quiet, reluctant understanding spread among them. This was not just survival. This was the apex of adaptation. Humanity was not constrained by fear, morality, or caution. They were shaped by the harshest possible forces, and they had learned not only to endure but to thrive because of them. The reptilian senator rose from its chair, scales glistening. "And yet, you have entered this council. You have not attacked. You have not demanded dominance. Why?" The human's voice was calm but sharp. "Because we do not attack without reason. We do not destroy without purpose. We are predators, yes. We consume. We endure. We thrive. But only when necessary. Survival demands caution as much as strength. We are not reckless. We are deliberate." The insectoid clicked again, wings vibrating nervously. And still, you terrify us. Even without action. How? Because fear is instinct, the human replied. And instinct recognizes truth. You feel our power not because we strike, but because we exist. Because life forged us in its harshest fires. Because we will endure what no other species can endure. And because, when we face a challenge, we consume it. And grow. The speaker's form trembled slightly. You speak in riddles, or prophecy. How can you consume fear, challenge, struggle? These are not food. These are not sustenance. How? The human's gaze swept across the council. Every word was deliberate. Every pause carried weight. By overcoming. By surviving. By enduring. By thriving. Every obstacle becomes sustenance. Every fear becomes nourishment. Every struggle becomes strength. That is what humans eat. Not flesh alone. Not life alone. Existence itself. A deep silence fell. The words seemed to echo beyond the chamber, beyond the station, beyond the galaxy itself. They were not merely statements, they were truth. And the truth was terrifying. The reptilian senator hissed. This is monstrous. You consume existence itself. How can one species manage such power? The human's lips curved slightly. We do not manage it. We are it. Life tested us. Life tried to break us. Life tried to destroy us. And we did not merely survive. We adapted. We endured. We consumed. And now, we thrive. The insectoid delegate clicked loudly, wings vibrating faster. So what you say is true. Humanity will never stop. Humanity will never fail. No challenge, no predator, no force can end you. The human nodded slowly. Correct. We do not stop. We do not surrender. We consume what stands in our way. We thrive on adversity. We are human. That is what we eat. A ripple of fear passed through the chamber. The mechanical envoy processed rapidly, calculating probabilities, outcomes, and threats. Its metallic voice sounded anxious for the first time. The survival probability of other species, in conflict with humans, approaches 0. The implications are staggering. The aquatic envoy pressed closer to the glass of its tank, ripples forming as if it wanted to escape reality itself. You are not like any species we have encountered. You are apex predators of life itself. The human's eyes narrowed faintly. Apex predators, yes, but not mindless. We do not attack without reason. We do not destroy without necessity. We endure because we must. We thrive because the universe demands it. And when the universe tests us, we consume the test and grow stronger. The speaker raised its staff, its voice trembling. And, what do you do with civilizations weaker than you? What happens to those who cannot withstand you? The human's gaze swept across the hall. Calm, cold, certain. They do not stand. Weakness is consumed by strength. That is the law of life. That is the law of humans. We do not apologize. We do not spare. We endure. We thrive. We consume. And those who cannot endure, they are lessons. They are part of our history. They are food, metaphorical or literal, depending on circumstance. Everything that exists is sustenance for the human will. The council trembled. Words hung in the air like knives. Delegates whispered to one another in panic. The insectoid covered its mandibles. The reptilian lowered its claws. Even the speaker's staff vibrated, unsure of what force it now faced. The human's calm presence dominated the hall. You fear us because you sense the truth. You see that existence itself bends before our survival. You realize that what you call challenges, trials, obstacles, even fear itself, we devour. We thrive on it. We endure it. We are humans. That is what we eat. The silence that followed was unlike anything the council had known. It was not merely absence of sound. It was heavy with comprehension, awe, and terror. Some delegates dared to speak, their voices trembling. And what of peace? What of coexistence? Can a species that consumes all coexist? The human's lips curved in a faint, almost cruel smile. Coexistence is possible only when others endure as we endure. Only when others face life's challenges, its hardships, its tests, and rise stronger. Those who cannot are consumed by the natural order. That is life. That is humanity. That is truth. A whisper traveled through the chamber. They are unstoppable. Yes, the human confirmed, as if reading their thoughts. We are unstoppable. We endure what others cannot. We thrive where others fail. We consume existence itself. And when the universe tests us, we grow stronger. That is what humans eat. The speaker raised its staff once more, its shimmering form wavering. And this is why the council fears humanity? The human's gaze swept the room. Calm. Steady. Terrifying. Yes. Not for what we eat alone. Not for what we kill. But for what we endure. For what we overcome. For the truth that life itself forged us into beings who thrive on struggle, who consume challenge, who cannot be broken. That is why you fear us. The chamber fell silent. Not in anger, not in argument, not in denial, but in comprehension, in awe, in terror. The council, the greatest assembly of civilizations, realized a simple truth: humanity was unlike anything they had known. They were not just survivors. They were predators of adversity, masters of existence itself. They did not merely live, they consumed life, challenge, fear, and struggle. And in the stillness of that hall, the human stood alone, calm, certain, unshaken. The speaker whispered, almost to itself, "We have underestimated life itself." The human smiled faintly, and for the first time, the council understood fully. Humanity was not just flesh and bone. Humanity was will. Humanity was endurance. Humanity was inevitability. And humanity consumed everything.